The all-new Yamaha V6 Offshore F350. It's a featherweight knockout, the lightest 350 horsepower outboard on the water, exhilarating boating and incredible control in a powerfully light design. The Yamaha V6 Offshore F350.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
Another dead whale, juvenile humpback, washed ashore on Long Beach Island last week. The video courtesy of Pat Gallen, who was there to document yet another marine mammal tragedy. I spoke with Greg Kudnick from Fisherman's headquarters, who was also on the scene. He said there was another mature humpback breaching just outside the breakers at the same time. The thought that that was Mama with her baby inshore, that's just heartbreaking. I'm Jim Hutchinson with a New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's Thursday, April 18th, 2024, and I'm not sure about the total tally right now since 2022, but it's a lot. Literally dozens of porpoises, dolphins, whales washed ashore along the beaches in New Jersey, New York region in the past, 24 to 36 months, I guess. But what's changed in the last 2 years? That's the thing that we've got to ask. With all these dead marine mammals on the beaches, what has changed during that time? Are there more boats, more ships? How about the fact that the Inflation Reduction Act that became law in August of 2022 both extended and increased the tax credits for wind energy projects that start construction as of January 1st, 2025. It's a race to get these areas surveyed, which is now the timeline. That's how this timeline has changed in the last 2 years. The geophysical survey work by large ships, for example, a mobilized drill rig with seabed frame about 16 miles due east of where I'm standing right now, in between Barnegat and Atlantic City. Orsted's gone, yeah, that's true, but this offshore wind development continues. And NOAA, I know they say it, quote, "No whale deaths have been attributed to offshore wind activities." And this poor young humpback showed signs of being struck by a vessel. But the smoking gun in a courtroom full of highly circumstantial evidence is this question: have offshore wind survey activities been found not to be responsible for these whale deaths? Or how many marine mammals have been struck, for example, by marine survey vessels? Look, later on at the end of this week's segment, we'll talk more about this fact, this industrial offshore wind stuff, this dead humpback as well, because honestly, all signs at this point towards our fishing communities as being scapegoated and ultimately gutted by the corporate takeover of our inshore waters here along the Jersey Shore. I'm also going to talk a little bit about something called AIS. But let's talk about the big news. I'm here in Waretown, Creekside Outfitters. The big news this week as we go into this weekend is the black drum invasion of Barnegat Bay all the way up to Seaside Park and who knows, perhaps beyond that. The banging of the drum came via our weekly fishing reports. We gathered them up on Sunday, posted them at thefisherman.com on Monday. That weekly digital edition that you saw in your email alert on Monday afternoon said it all. Yeah, I know, that's a picture of the big champ, the champion at Spring Lake. Not just a photo, though. Look at the headlines. And one headline in particular says, Ocean County Bayside Drumbeat, because that's what we're looking at right now. I got a call from a buddy of mine this week who said the backside of the Barnegat Peninsula looked a little like the front side of that stretch of Seaside Island Beach during the November fall run. I received this email on Tuesday. Robbie Fuji and Anthony Barbosa doubled up from shore on the backside of the Barnegat Island, Barnegat Peninsula. I'm not spot burning, I'm telling you, you got to figure out where that is. But Anthony told me, quote, fresh bait is key. Fresh bait, of course, being skimmer clam or surf clam, preferably in the shell, as you'll find here this week at Creekside Outfitters and dozens of tackle shops along the Jersey Shore. And speaking with Gina here at Creekside earlier, it sounds like the big body of big drum, those big drumfish that moved into the Barnegat Inlet ostensibly, they're running from Bayville to South Seaside Park as far north in the middle of this week as the Route 37 bridge. And whether they move farther up the Barnegat Bay to the next bridge, think Maniloking in that particular area, I don't know, but this is quite the blitzkrieg right now. Now, my father and I used to target black drum, still do. Dad's splashing his boat later on this week, still in the month of April, but we always went behind Beach Haven, Little Egg Harbor area, into Great Bay, looking for some of those April drum. And a lot of them are a little bit smaller, but by the evidence of what we've seen this week, we're talking about big boomers in the Barnegat Bay. And of course, May and June, that's when the for-hire fleet out of Cape May is going to be all over the drum grounds on Delaware Bay. But at this point in the season, April 18th, it looks like we're getting black drum reports in every coastal county. Cape May, Atlantic, Ocean, and yes, even along the Monmouth Bay shore on the Raritan Bay. In fact, another email I received this week was from Carlos Santos Jr., who said his dad, Carlos Sr., of Fords, New Jersey, caught a 24-incher in the Raritan Bay surf on Sunday morning. He also caught a small striper, both fish taking bloods. By the way, Carlos there, if you take a look at that photo, he shows the first cut on a dinner-sized table drum. I know folks talk about how bad drum is. That's not true. I find that the 10 to 25-pound drum, the dinner table-sized drum, are really terrific. But the tough part about cleaning a drum is getting through those guitar pick style size scales on the backside, the upper part near the dorsal fin on a black drum. I highly recommend the Dexter Outdoors Dextreme dual blade. It's got that upper edge, the tiger edge, for getting through those scales, and that'll protect the other side, the clean blade, for once you get that first cut and start filleting out some of those black drum. Also very good for sheep's head and for triggerfish, which will become important later on into this season. Now, tactically speaking, one young lady I know was super excited to hear about these drum heading up into Barnegat Bay. And on this week's Open Boat, Jenny Ackerman joins Sean Smita aboard the aptly named Clam Strings to take advantage of the bite. She was out over this weekend when everything exploded, and she's got some simple tips and tactics that you should be interested in using if you're thinking about targeting those black drum this weekend.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Open Boat. Today we are going to be covering potentially a historical fishing event in the state of New Jersey, something we haven't seen before or at this magnitude in many years, probably before my time. We are going to target black drum in the Barnegat Bay. Now, usually we'd be seeing these big black drum out front right now off the surf, but there's been countless reports coming in of these giant drum being caught off of the fishing piers in the Barnegat Bay, and we're gonna try today to get them off the boat. So to give you a little rundown, if you wanted to either get in on this bite while it lasts or target them out front during our spring Throw the Snot clam run, this is what you're gonna need. So this is the rig. Start off, you're going to snell a circle hook. Give yourself about 20 inches of 40-pound fluorocarbon. Attach it to a barrel swivel. Give yourself another 20 or so inches to another barrel swivel. But the important part to this rig is this right here. This is just 2 beads and literally a fish finder clip for your sinker, making it the fish finder rig. So if you're fishing off the surf, you're gonna wanna probably do a heavier pyramid sinker. Those pyramid sinkers, when you cast out your clam, you lift your rod up a little bit so that sinker digs into the stand and doesn't move around. And off the boat, you could use a smaller pyramid sinker, or you could just use a bang sinker because you're just sticking it in the mud in the Barnegat Bay back here. Now, time is against us. As I speak, the wind is picking up. We don't really have a weather window, but hey, I'm not known to be a fair weather fisherman, and we're about to link up with Sean Smita on the FV clam strings, and I know he's just as eager as I am to get on some of these drum. So let's pack up all of our gear and let's get out there and see if we can drum up some fish. That's a terrible joke. I will see myself out. All right, we're here now on the Great Barnegat Bay, and first things first, you want to double anchor up and get yourself a slick going. So we have a chum log out just in case we wanted to pick up some flounder. We do have rigs down for them too. And here you see Sean, he's cracking open some clamshells here and just really adding some extra chum into the water to really entice all those black drum. And hey, they're catching stripers out here, so maybe we can get a trifecta of drum, flounder, and stripers. And next up, you're gonna wanna shuck a good old clam and take that whole piece and literally just put it on your hook and give yourself a nice clam ball. And let's see if we can get a Barnegat Bay drum roll. There you go, hold that puppy up. Oh my God. Smell you later. Oh my God. Well, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed that open boat. Nice little fishing adventure we had. We almost had the Barnegat Bay trifecta. We just needed winter flounder, but stay tuned for next week's open boat because we're going to talk about another species you can get on clam. Catch you next week.
Historic, perhaps. Amazing, absolutely. But we're less than a week out from the full moon on Tuesday, April 23rd, and we are definitely starting to see that transition, and we're getting more of these firsts for the 2024 season, not just that black drum invasion of Barnegat Bay. And while folks in Delaware, like Craig Blocker here, are already on the summer flounder bite, this 4.5 pounder that he checked in with the folks at Lewis Harbor Marina earlier this week, that was taken from the Lewis Canal on squid. But yeah, in New Jersey, we will be getting our fluke season back in just 16 days. 16 days from now. Also opens in New York, I believe, as well. Their size limit is 19. Our size starting in 16 days is 18 inches. But I've already had the first reported summer flounder caught and released for this 2024 season as well. The first one that I've seen, that was on Sunday, April 14th, out of Atlantic City. Juan Rodriguez caught and released this flatty while working a local jetty for stripers, as reported by the folks at One Stop Bait and Tackle. And yeah, Noel there says, yeah, the drummer here, stripers are here on the south side of Absecon Inlet. We're starting to find out too from Andy and Riptide Bait and Tackle in Brigantine, the drum and stripers are all along the beaches there as well. We also got our very first reported weakfish of the 2024 season. This week, the folks at Sea Isle Bait and Tackle posted this on Wednesday, Dom V, showing off the first Jersey Shore weekie that I've seen in the report so far for this 2024 season. So what do we got here now that we're looking at it? Atlantic and Cape May County anglers, what do you have on the inshore grounds? You have the weekies, you have the stripers, you have the black drum in the mix, inshore, back bay, and the surf grounds at this point. Now, we've got a great big feature coming out next week in our May edition of the Fisherman magazine, which will go to print on Sunday. It's targeting weakfish with Matt Broderick's 8 favorite plastics, which includes the NLBNs, the paddle tails. You'll see the NLBNs brand new here to the shop here at Creekside, but Matt is talking about the NLBNs, no live bait needed. Great weakfish bait. We've been getting great reports on the on stripers over the years. Plus, they have the giant tuna heads as well. Last year, when folks were catching those tuna out there at the Seaside Lump, they were going with the NLBNs. Now, this Friday, the new River Herring limited batch series from NLBN will officially go on sale at many locations at 8 p.m. I got myself a sneak sampling of these new River Herring baits. They were sent to me this week, but these will go on sale at many shops this Friday at 8 p.m. Now, Liza told me she doesn't have the new sea herring, but she has plenty of them. She's got the copper There are a bunch of NLBNs here for you to take a look at. Now, you'll find these outstanding soft plastics and jig heads from NLBN at many of your favorite local shops, and like I said, including here at Creekside Outfitters as well. Creekside is all geared up for the 2024 season. Talking to Tom P., the whack-a-mole himself. He's getting new signs ready. If you're driving down Route 9, you got to look at the signs. The signs change on a regular basis. If it's green crabs, they've got them. I saw a sign that they're working on now. He's talking about blue crabs already. So maybe it's time to start putting the traps out. They've got the clam. You'll get your baits here. You'll get your NLBNs. You get everything that you need for the 2024 season by stopping in here at Creekside Outfitters, Route 9 in Waretown. Just a great place, and it's a lot bigger inside than it looks from the outside. Striped bass, of course, in play in New Jersey. A 1 bass limit for you anglers who want to keep one for the table. One from 28 to 31 inches. That's your keeper size. Now, many folks are starting to find those keeper slot fish along our open beaches. They're soaking clams. They're soaking bloodworms. I did get a report from somebody this week. I heard some fish are starting to whack on some of the finished plastics, you know, the SP minnows and the like. The jumbos, of course, are preparing to spawn, heading up, for example, the Delaware River. Patrick Milligan let me know about the 47-incher he caught along the river last week, roughly 40 pounds caught and released. Then told me again this week he was at it again, another 42-incher on bloodworms. So those fish are moving up the Delaware. If you're catching those big jumbos, obviously brace the belly because those are loaded with eggs. Get them back in the water as quickly as possible. Try to avoid even getting them out of the water. If you can do a wet release, that's very important. Down closer to the open Delaware Bay, in Fortescue, I know the folks in Higbee's are keeping busy on the bloodworm shipments. Father and son, Crab and Fish Senior and Crab and Fish Junior, getting it done with a score from shore this week. 2 fish just over the slot, which were released there along the beaches of Fortescue on Monday. Now, as I mentioned before, the front side beaches are producing more and more each day, clam or bloodworm. It was blood for Paul Donnelly, who checked in his 29-inch keeper at Surf City Bait and Tackle this week. That's the first of the year in the LBI Striper Derby going on all this month, going on through the rest of May as well. In North Jersey, Monmouth County, along the Raritan Bay, finding bait in the last couple of weeks has been difficult. And I think it's really because of the sheer volume of rain that we've had throughout the latter part of March and the first couple of weeks in April, especially the first few days in April. All that freshwater flush into the marine environment certainly has the tendency to scatter the fish, and especially the bunker as well. Did get a report, though, this week from my friend Chuck Manny aboard his Tie Man. He started by looking for bunkers, scattered readings. They're there. He switched over to eels, but there's too much traffic to fish with eels the way he does, so he transitioned to anchoring with worms, sandworms, and then he started drifting the worms for a decent pick. Then he tried to get in on a metal lip bite. Somebody called him in and said, it's going on right now. He was late for the metal lip bite, went back to the eels, and ended up with 22 stripers this week, 1 under, 6 slots, and the rest were overs, up to about 28 pounds. So again, the lesson here is, where are the stripers? The lesson here is adapt, improvise, and overcome. You got to be prepared for anything, especially with the crazy weather patterns that we've had. Now, I expect we'll be shifting into 5th gear pretty soon, putting the pedal to the metal in our striped bass fishery, especially over the next 5 to 10 days throughout the Garden State. Weather-wise, except for today, Thursday the 18th, we're looking pretty good heading into the weekend ahead, with temperatures expected into the mid to upper 60s on Saturday at the Jersey Shore. By the way, I mentioned the striped bass bonus program in last week's video fishing forecast, and I did get some emails and texts from folks asking about the saltwater registration number. I followed up with the folks from the Division of Fish and Wildlife. They've updated that striped bass bonus registration now. It will now ask you for your CID number, which I believe is your customer identification number. Once you sign into the site, that's going to be with you forever. So go to saltwaterregistry.nj.gov. You can sign up for and get your saltwater registry. Once you're in there, you hit the register button on the right-hand side to get that registration, but you can also get your trout stamp, you can get your freshwater fishing license, and you can find the striped bass bonus program information over at njfishandwildlife.com. Now, I had a 20-pound tog in the video fishing forecast last week. I spoke to Tom Daffin after running that photo and said, hey, can you send me that photo? I want to use it for something different. He said, you want the 20-pounder or the 20 and a half? We'll talk tog, 20 and a half pound tog, striper quest. We'll talk more about offshore wind, and we'll look at our near-shore marine weather forecast for the weekend ahead. That's in 2 minutes. But first, let's go out to the Poconos, check with my friend George, the Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, weather again is playing havoc with us anglers. One day it's cold, next day it's warm and sunny. Who knows what things are going to be next, but hopefully the wind will die down. Let us get back out in that water a little bit and get in some fish. Despite some of the crazy weather, we do have some guys getting in some good fish. Shad is certainly still at the forefront. You know, got a couple of guys out with Tim Keebler, Steven, Liam, and Lauren were out on the Fin Seeker getting in a bunch of shad. Great work there, Tim, even on a blustery, windy day. Even Dave Peruso, he was out on there getting a couple really nice roe as well on the Delaware. And also friend Kevin Ingram out on the Delaware getting on a couple nice fish as well. So the shad are definitely biting, guys, even though that water temperature has been just around that 50-degree mark. Other things, we still have the trout going good. Steve Kolnick out getting some folks on some really nice brown trout on the Lehigh River. Also Jen Wong, Jersey Jen Wong, out there in North Jersey getting those nice browns on those jerkbaits. So great work there, guys. Also, Jeff Clark up on the Paul Pack. He's getting himself into some nice stripers. He also managed to pick up a nice pike, a couple of smallmouth, some really good fish up there on the pack. So everything's starting to bite. Also, Nick Canestra down in the lower Susquehanna near Blue Marsh, getting us some nice smallmouth as well on those jerkbaits. So despite the weather, guys, there's still a lot of good fish, and I hope you're out this weekend getting on them as well. But from Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
Our Pocono Outdoors guy mentioned the Delaware River shad fishing. Well, don't forget, next week is the annual Bi-State Shad Contest. It runs from April 25th through the 28th. 20 grand in play in this shad contest, plus a brand new 18-foot Yamaha G3 with jet drive and bare trailer. It's quite the event, an annual tradition, a lot of money on the line for American shad. Go to shadfishingcontest.com to register for that tournament. Now, while for the for hire boats from the Raritan down to Shark River, Manasquan, Barnegat, and into Great Egg are all pounding the wrecks and reef sites in search of blackfish. No doubt about it. Some of the very best reported catches are coming from south, mainly out of Cape May. Although while I was here today talking to Liza, she said one of the folks from the shop was on the Osprey, had a 20-pounder on Wednesday. But I did mention the Daffin fish last week. Well, here's another one too. Jake Adair said he's just come out of retirement. He's back in the Blackfish in South Jersey. His first ride in the brand new boat. Found a 4-man limit on tog up to 14 pounds this week. And again, back to the fishing fever. I had texted Daffin about that photo, about a 20-pounder for Brian Minjone last week, and instead he texted me a 20-and-a-half-pounder that was caught later in the week by Len Fenimore from Cape May Courthouse. Truly amazing, the amount of big tog coming from Atlantic into Cape May County and ostensibly on the reef structure as well down in Delaware. Some of those boats selling out of Lewis Harbor, for example. The Katy did, the JC2. Look for them out of Lewis Harbor Marina because those reef sites in Delaware are loaded with big tog as well. I expect we'll see much of the Cape May fleet, however, switching over to Black Drum in the next couple of weeks, especially once New Jersey's April tog fishery comes to an end. And of course, fluke, we got summer flounder back starting on May 4th. Things are lined up rather nicely at this point, especially going into this weekend. Just always want to keep an eye on that NOAA marine forecast to make sure that as good as it feels onshore, sometimes you go offshore, it's a little bit different. Well, I'll tell you what, heading into Saturday and Sunday, the NOAA marine weather forecast for the Jersey Shore looks pretty good. And this weekend ahead could be about the busiest boat day of the year so far for 2024. Now, don't forget the larger vessels out there on the open ocean, they utilize something called the Automatic Identification System, or AIS. These larger vessels must employ AIS while underway. In fact, you can go to a website called marinetraffic.com to follow the path of these vessels, I believe 65 feet or greater, that have to keep their AIS tracking unit operational so as to be tracked by the government at all times. Unless, of course, I guess if you're in the industrial offshore wind survey game, because the general consensus among those members of the public that are tracking these boats is that what's good for them is not necessarily good for us, or vice versa. We have to use the AIS, but there's a theory that some of these survey vessels don't always have their AIS turned on. For example, there's a little nugget about what's good for us and not good for them. Information that's buried in the Federal Register, applicable to ships dragging their surveys, they're towing back and forth to map the ocean bottom for turbine and cable installation. Every other boat 65 feet and up has to watch for whales and stop right away. Survey vessels? Guess not. So, in a nutshell, AIS is used by our federal government for a whole host of purposes. While I have no idea if the good folks at NOAA are tracking the survey vessels, for example, to compare with the whale death patterns, which by God they should, I know that's right, but I do know how AIS is being used in our world. And that's to plot the distance between point A and point B of fishing vessels, not just commercial vessels, but any vessel over 65 feet. Think about how many of our for-hire folks, the federally permitted head boats or party boats. So you use the tracking to go from point A to point B. The government can use mathematics to tell how fast you're going. And if you're in violation of the 10 knot or less speed restriction for vessels 65 feet and over along the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, at certain times of the year, they will issue you a fine. And of course, this is being done to reduce the amount of dead whales that are happening along the coast. But there is another proposal that's out by NOAA Fisheries right now to slide that minimum size boat length from 65 down to 35 feet. And that's got a lot of folks worried here at the Jersey Shore. Well, the Wall Street Journal this week, they waded into the issue in a rather juvenile way, I would say, because look at this headline. Quote, "A boat speed limit is pitting yacht owners against whale lovers." Please, yacht owners. So anybody who's got a boat 35 feet and up is a yacht owner. 35-foot contender, regulator. Come on, man. The Journal goes on to interview yacht rocker Tom Daffin, captain of the luxury vessel Fishin' Fever, which is a 38-foot Calvin Beale. Think about it, my friends, and realize how out of touch the mainstream media is. If you leave Hutch's Marina, it's got to take you 20 minutes to get out to the open ocean, and it's got to take you 20 minutes to come back in. That's 40 minutes, coupled with 3.5 hours to go out to the offshore grounds and back. Under the NOAA proposal, that's 8 hours of transit time alone just to put a couple of tuna in the box. Again, fishermen are getting scapegoated, and the fossil fuel companies masquerading as green energy warriors are in line to get very, very wealthy. The Government Accountability Office, we've spoken about it before, is doing a full-scale investigation into industrial offshore wind, the whales, the EMF, all the impacts that this industrialization effort is going to have on our coastal resources, our fish and our fishermen. And I'm hoping that they're going to look into this AIS thing with these survey vessels, not just the survey, but also the construction of these turbines off the beach. Hey man, it's all about science, right? Science. Science, baby, is what we're talking about at Striper Quest 2024. It's coming up fast. That's going to be held on May 16th. There's a captain's meeting on May 15th. This is the single largest day of striped bass tagging in the entire world. It's presented by the Fisherman magazine, our friends from Gray Fish Tag Research. You can find all the information on our Northeast striped bass study over at thefisherman.com. You'll see a section at the top, and you can go take a look at everything. But in the May edition that's coming out next week, we'll have more details as well. Find these posters along the Raritan Bay shore, places like Lockwood Wagner's, up front bait and tackle, Julian's, the tackle box, Twin Lights Marina down to Tack Waterman. You'll find all this information. We want you to be there. We're almost at the halfway point at this point of the week, April 18th. We've got a 50-boat field, but we're halfway there. So I want you to join us. Get more information, of course, in next week's May edition. The full monthly is going to print Sunday night. I hope you'll join us. It's a busy weekend ahead, of course, for all of us. If you're out banging the drum, chasing weak fish, getting yourself prepped. Myself, I'll be washing and waxing on Saturday. I just finished bottom painting earlier this week, and I'm finally splashing my little center console sometime next week, just before the tog fishing ends, hoping for a back bay tog. Maybe by the time some of those drum move into the upper Barnegat Bay. By Friday, if you're looking to reach me, I will be on the road all day, God willing. Bang those drum. Look for the cinder worm hatch coming up this week around the time of the April 23rd full moon. I think that's when we're really going to get into things here at the Jersey Shore. I hope you're ready, because we're about ready to rip the lid off a 55-gallon drum of drag screaming madness. Tight lines, catch them up. I'll see you again next week right here at thefisherman.com.